Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm here with Mark Mendoza of Mark Mendoza Photography, and we're here to talk about shooting for food, basically for restaurants and other food-related businesses. So, Mark, would love to have you introduce yourself, talk about what you do, and we'll get into the interview.
Sure. Name is Mark Mendoza. I run Mark Mendoza Photography, specializing in product, food, and lifestyle. Do a lot of food photography. Work with restaurants, with food purveyors of all kinds, there's always a lot of questions too from the restaurateur's perspective of, how do I prepare for that? What does the photographer need? What's it going to take? And
Hmm.
for example, it's usually a lot longer than what they anticipate. That's
Sure.
just the main thing, is that they think it is going to come in, and like it's like you come in with an iPhone and you just click, 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 and you leave, and they find out it's a lot more involved than that. So
Sure. And so, like, that perception, I'm curious, is that just from like sort of the Instagram culture that everyone basically just whips out their phone and takes pictures of food and thinks that they're like, an awesome photographer because they
right.
got some filters?
I
Yeah.
certainly don't think that the Instagram thing is helping in that
Yeah.
regard.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. But I think also that the folks who hire me, the restaurant owners and other food purveyors that hire me, know that when they hire me, they're getting something that's a step up from the Instagram
Hmm.
kind of thing. So it shouldn't be too much of a shock that things will take longer, things will go more staged and
Sure.
prepped and so forth. Um, but this is more like advertising style photography, right?
Okay.
And it's just much more involved, much more time intensive, task intensive, um, as opposed to Instagram, which is just very, and like it's in the name, it's very instant.
Yeah. Sure.
You shoot it, you post it, and it's about the moment, it's about the now,
Right.
and that has its place too. Obviously, social media has its place, but when people are looking for photography of their food for their website, they want to show it in the best possible light. It has to be very high end. That's when they call me. Or any kind of, it's for the menu, it's for print advertising, whatever
Hmm.
it is.
Great. And so the setup process, I mean, it's not, you don't just show up and just take some shots and leave and then, 30 minutes later, right? So, like, let's say someone decides that they want to make this investment in their business. It's a time commitment. It's obviously a financial commitment. In order to get the most out of this investment, like, what are what are recommendations that you have in terms of prepping for a shoot? What happens? Let's describe about like a little bit of what happens during a shoot. A lot of people
Right.
they might not know if they've never gone through it, and then after, there's also a lot of work that goes into it too, right? It's not just taking the pictures and here you go. There's a lot of probably post processing or things to do to really highlight the food that people are so proud of from their restaurant, right?
Right. And I think it's important to recognize that photography is a two-step process.
Hmm.
There's a photo shoot that you see that's in front of you and that happens. And then when I leave, there's hours spent
Hmm.
on the post side, um, perfecting the shots and making them what they need to be. Right. I mean, as a photographer, it's your job to pre-visualize the shot. That's step one.
Okay.
You have to understand what's the shot going to be
Hmm.
and have that in your head. And via the photo shoot, you get hopefully at least halfway there,
Okay.
but it's not quite.
Yeah.
Right. And then you take it back with you and you do the post processing and you make all the edits and you clean up all the distracting little bits and little specks or whatever, and you take it that final step
Hmm.
so that it matches that image that you had in your head. So I think that's kind of the best way to explain that process. As far as what to expect, like I said, number one, it takes typically longer than what you expect. There's a lot of equipment. Some of the equipment here is what I'll use uh, at a lot of these restaurants. So setup always takes long
Hmm.
time. After the first shot is set up and shot, things start to roll a little more quickly because everything is set up and you're kind of moving at that point. But it is time consuming. There is a lot of gear. One of the things that I see restaurateurs, one of the sort of the mistakes they make is, I'm setting up for one shot and they maybe have given me a dish and I turn around and all of a sudden there's another dish there and another one and they're like, oh, here's the next three, and I'm like, wait.
Yeah.
Food has a very short shelf life.
Right.
You have to do it one by one. You can't just start cranking them out.
Right.
So I'm like, no, slow down, and you know, we'll have to remake them because again, you know, lettuce wilts and meats dry up, and everything sort of just dries up and
Right.
wilts and just kind of dies. It's a very short shelf life. So oftentimes I'll ask for, if nothing else, just a plate or a plate with a wrinkled up napkin in it,
Mm-hmm.
or a piece of fruit on it or something to you know, get set up in the space to light it and
Mm-hmm.
to get it more or less where I want before they even bring in the food.
Sure.
You know, because you don't want to be waiting for me while the food's just sitting there. Then when we have the food,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we'll sort of adjust to that, and we'll try to make it look its best. And I have a food. I am not a food stylist, but I do have a food styling
Sure.
kit. Um, so you don't think I'm lying. Food styling kit.
All right. Cool.
And I do my best to trim little pieces of leaves in salads, or you know, I've got tweezers and chopsticks actually work great, and you can
Mm-hmm.
just kind of rearrange all the little pieces because they never look, you know, it's just the way you want them to look. You know, you've always got to arrange things and make them look just right. And you know, the other thing I tell chefs is if you have a piece of meat, you know, just sear it. You know, make it rare.
Yeah.
You know, you don't really want to cook it because the more you cook it, the more it shrivels up and becomes
Sure.
small,
Mm-hmm.
and it could also dry out. So, you know, just sear it on both sides so it looks not on the outside, right? It's all for looks. So, yeah, that would be another piece of advice.
So you were talking about the sort of the conveyor belt of plates being lined up.
Yes.
So advice, and like let's back up, right? You're deciding you want to have a shoot, you want to make this investment. How many things can you realistically shoot in a day? And I'm sure that's a loaded question. Probably there's no answer, but you got to plan ahead. Like, all right, what you want to highlight and what you're going to get through the day in, right? And then also probably figure out different backdrops so they're not all the same. Like, what goes into all that planning ahead of time?
Well, that's an important point, is because it's always setup that takes the longest, right? So once you have one set up, it would be great to think that you can simply put your dish in, shoot it, swap it out, put another one in. But it's never going to work like that. And number two, do you really want the same background in every single shot? And the answer is no, you really don't. What I suggest to restaurant owners is that they look around the restaurant and find, you know, the most attractive spots, or I will, you know, visit and do it with them. You know, what would be some good spots to shoot on? Would it be at a particular table by a window, one over by the bar area to highlight the bar area? You know, find 3, 4, 5 different spots, depending on how many shots you ultimately want.
Sure.
And we'll break up that way because obviously if you have, you know, 15 shots that you want to get done, you can't do it in 15 locations. You know, you have to find that happy medium between efficiency and, you know, diversity of you know, background and so forth. So you know, you want to have enough diversity there that you the idea is you can use these images for the web and for social media, and you want to get a lot out of them because you don't want to come back next week, you know. So yeah, that's we want to make it as efficient as possible while keeping it as interesting and engaging an image as possible. So that's normally what the first thing that I tell them is, you know, we're going to set up in however many spots. We're going to divide this into, you know, 4 locations, let's say, within your restaurant. And it's also good to have props, whatever is suitable for your restaurant. You know, whether it's salt, pepper shakers, or you know, some restaurants, depending on their decor, have really interesting, you know, pieces of glassware or what have you that make a big difference. And also, you may have, you know, a wall that is painted a certain color or has a mural on it, or there's a million and one things. So I always look for those things so they make the shot more interesting. So, but even within the single space, you can also adjust the angle, swap out the place settings, put different props, and then you sort of have a different background, even though you haven't really moved. You know,
does someone have to think about, like, okay, for this shooting this day, like maybe just focus on apps and then entrees and then beverages another day, or can it kind of be everything at once, or what do you recommend?
It can't be everything at once,
Okay.
but I've done like bar shoots
Mm-hmm.
separate because it depends how how many drinks you want to highlight.
Sure.
I
Mm-hmm.
just did a shoot for Gustazo Cuban Cafe
Mm-hmm.
in Waltham,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a new location and they have this lovely bar that they didn't have before.
Sure.
And so they really wanted to highlight that, and they got the bartender and we worked with him and we shot in that location, shot a bunch of drinks, and it was fun. So that was a very particular goal that they had in mind for that place. But we did a separate shoot for the food, for updating all the food,
Mm-hmm.
and for the location, for the interiors and exteriors of the restaurant, which I do as well, not just the food.
Got it. Okay. And so if someone, I remember we were having this conversation about like berries, for instance, it's sort of, eye-opening for me. Like you don't just make a dessert or something and throw some berries on it and style it. There's actually a lot of prep work that goes into actually highlighting the food in the best way too, around the ingredients, right?
Correct. Yeah. Well, food shops will often buy large volumes of berries or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
and sort them to sort out the best, because what are the odds that if you buy a package of strawberries or whatever, that they're all going to be just visually stunning. They may
Right.
be good to eat, but so it helps to get more of whatever it is you're going to need rather than less.
Sure.
So that's something that I recommend.
And just from I guess a concept standpoint, so some places will have images on the menu. Some are just printed menus. Maybe they change daily. Like, is there any? What's the thought process around putting the food on a menu versus maybe it's not the best idea to put the food on the menu? Like, do you have those conversations with owners, or is it more like they've decided I'm going to have food, pictures on my menu, and then you come in and basically highlight the food? Like,
Yeah,
where do they bring you in?
It's normally they've decided something like how they're going to use the images.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm happy to talk to them about that, but they normally will have an idea whether it's. I was hired for one job. It's an Asian restaurant in Boston, and they had a very particular need. Is that they sort of like in a food court kind of scenario,
Mm-hmm.
and instead of menus, this is a Vietnamese place. They put all flat screen TV, about like 4 or 5 flat screens, and they want them all images with with the numbers and stuff like that. So it's very cool. It came out really nice, and so that was their particular need.
Mm-hmm.
Others are redoing a website, and they may have hired a web designer, but of course they need content, and so
right.
And they'll use that. Content, and of course on social media. So
sure,
it really varies. A lot of times I would say it's a lot of people like just revamping a website.
Okay.
Probably that feeds a lot of it. But it could be anything. Whatever marketing endeavor you're into, ultimately you're going to need imagery to go with it.
Right, totally. And so you actually go beyond food too. I mean, you'll highlight the owners, the chefs, the staff, and I mentioned that's a separate shoot. You're not necessarily
right
dressing them up or anything, but
yes, yeah. Depending on the volume of food they have, I could certainly schedule another shoot. But yes, happy to shoot a chef portrait.
Mm-hmm.
Some chefs want to be in the spotlight, and
sure.
some don't want to be. But or just simply headshots of the staff, and like I said, do the physical location too, because people like that for their website. Usually come in a day, then they're closed, or with the
right.
restaurant's empty, and you can just capture the architecture
totally
and the design
of
the space.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Any other parting words or tips, I guess, for people watching, just about successful post-processing things, like or anything related to the shoot that they should keep in mind when hiring a photographer, for instance, their skill set, that sort of thing.
Just be prepared. Just try to be prepared as you can. Like with anything, it all comes down to preparation as to how smoothly your shoot's going to go. And if you kind of have done the work, and you kind of you have an understanding of what the shots you're going to use, make a list, make a shot list.
Okay.
What are the best sellers? What do you really want to highlight? Let's put those on. Where are you thinking of shooting them? Do you have any ideas? Again, happy to speak with them about that. But again, it just comes down to the preparation. How many images, how many you want in each location, and
right.
And we can go from there. But yeah, preparation goes a long way.
Okay. And where can people find out more about you and your business?
Check out www.markmendozaphoto.com,
Okay,
and you can take a look at my work.
cool. And you have links to Facebook, Instagram, that sort of thing there too.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time. It's
Great.
awesome.
Thanks so much.
All right. See you later, everyone.